Jason was a young man with big dreams, but very little money. At just 22 years old, he worked as a courier, delivering food and packages across the city on his old, worn-out bicycle. Every day, he rode through busy streets, past tall buildings and fancy houses, wondering if his life would ever change. He had grown up in a rough neighborhood, where opportunities were rare and struggles were common. But Jason never let that stop him. He believed that if he worked hard enough, something good would happen. His daily routine was exhausting. From early morning until late at night, he pedaled through traffic, weaving between cars and dodging careless drivers. The city never stopped moving, and neither did he. Rain or shine, he delivered orders to customers who barely noticed him. Some were friendly and left small tips, while others treated him like he didn't exist. But Jason didn't complain. He needed the money to support himself and help his younger sister, Mia, who was still in school. Despite his tough life, Jason remained hopeful. He often dreamed of a better future, maybe opening his own business, moving to a nice apartment, or even traveling the world one day. But for now, all he could do was keep pushing forward. His bicycle was falling apart, and every bump on the road made him fear it might break down completely. He had no savings for repairs, so he prayed it would last a little longer. One evening, after a long and tiring day, Jason received one last delivery request. He sighed, wiped the sweat off his forehead, and checked the address. It was in a rich part of town, far from where he lived. The thought of cycling all the way there made him groan, but he had no choice. More deliveries meant more money, and he needed every dollar he could earn. As he pedaled through the city, the bright lights of expensive restaurants and designer stores surrounded him. People in fancy clothes walked past him, laughing and enjoying their evening. Jason couldn't help but wonder what it felt like to live that kind of life, to have money, comfort, and security. But there was no time for daydreaming. He had a job to do. When he reached the neighborhood, he was amazed by the huge houses and perfectly trimmed gardens. It felt like a different world, so peaceful and clean compared to the noisy streets he was used to. As he rode past a quiet alley, something unusual caught his attention. A sudden noise, like a struggle. His instincts told him to ignore it and keep moving, but something inside him made him stop. For a moment, he hesitated. Getting involved could mean trouble, but then he heard a voice, a woman's voice, calling for help. His heart pounded. He looked around and saw no one else nearby. If he didn't do something, who would? Taking a deep breath, Jason tightened his grip on his bike and turned towards the alley, not knowing that this single moment would change his life forever. Jason's heart pounded as he stepped into the dark alley. The dim streetlights barely lit the narrow path, but he could see shadows moving ahead. His hands gripped the handlebars of his bicycle tightly as he slowly walked forward, his eyes scanning the scene. A young woman stood against the brick wall, fear written all over her face. She had long, flowing hair and wore an elegant dress, but right now, she looked terrified. Two men stood in front of her, their voices low but aggressive. Jason couldn't hear everything they were saying, but he knew one thing for sure: she needed help. Jason felt his legs shaking, but he pushed his fear aside. He had faced tough situations before, but this was different. He was just a courier, a guy trying to make a living. He had no weapons, no backup, nothing but his bike and his courage. But something in his heart told him he couldn't just walk away. Clearing his throat, he stepped forward. "Hey, is everything okay?" His voice was steady, but inside, he was nervous. The two men turned to look at him. For a second, there was silence. The young woman's eyes met Jason's, pleading for help. Jason knew he had to act fast. Without thinking, he lifted his bicycle and placed it between himself and the men. "She doesn't look fine to me," he said firmly, trying to sound more confident than he felt. One of the men scoffed. "Mind your business, kid." Jason swallowed hard, but didn't back down. "I think I just made it my business." He knew he was taking a risk, But he also knew that if he showed weakness, things could go badly for him. And for the woman. The second man stepped forward, sizing Jason up. He was taller, broader, and definitely stronger. Jason gripped his bicycle tighter, ready for anything. "You really want to get in the way?" the man asked. Jason took a deep breath. His heart was racing, but he forced himself to stay calm. "I don't want trouble," he said, "but I won't walk away either." The two men exchanged glances. Maybe they realized it wasn't worth the effort, or maybe Jason's confidence made them second-guess themselves. Either way, after a tense moment, they muttered something under their breath and walked away, disappearing into the darkness of the alley. Jason let out a breath he didn't realize he had been holding. He turned to the woman. "Are you okay?" She nodded, though she still looked shaken. "Yes. Thank you. If you hadn't come." She trailed off, her voice unsteady. Jason gave her a reassuring smile. "It's all right now. You're safe." She took a deep breath, trying to calm herself. "My name is Emily," she said. "I don't know how to thank you." Jason shrugged. "No need. I was just passing by." Emily shook her head. "No, you saved me. Please, let me do something for you." Jason didn't know it yet, but this night was only the beginning. His life was about to change in ways he never imagined. Jason looked at Emily, still unsure of what to say. He had never expected to be in a situation like this. Just a few minutes ago, he had been a tired courier, thinking about his last delivery. Now, he had just helped a woman from a dangerous situation, and she was standing in front of him, thanking him like he was some kind of hero. Emily brushed her hair back and took a deep breath. She was still shaken but trying to stay strong. "I really don't know what would have happened if you hadn't shown up," she said. Her voice was soft, filled with both relief and gratitude. Jason gave a small nod. "I'm just glad you're okay." He wasn't used to receiving attention like this. Most people barely noticed him when he dropped off their food or packages. But Emily was different. She was looking at him like he had done something important. She pulled out her phone. "Please, let me do something for you. Can I at least call you a ride home?" Jason shook his head. "No need. I have my bike." He glanced down at it and frowned. The front wheel was bent from when he had used it to block the men earlier. He sighed. This bike was his lifeline, and now it was barely usable. Emily noticed and immediately looked concerned. "Oh no, your bike. Did it break because of what happened?" Jason hesitated. He didn't want to complain. "It's all right. I'll figure something out." Emily crossed her arms. "No way. You helped me, and now I want to help you." She tapped on her phone screen and made a call. Jason couldn't hear everything, but he caught words like delivery bike and urgent. A few minutes later, she put her phone down and smiled. "I just ordered a new bike for you. It'll be delivered tomorrow." Jason's eyes widened. "Wait, what? You didn't have to do that." Emily shrugged. "I wanted to. It's the least I can do." Jason didn't know how to respond. No one had ever done something like this for him before. People rarely cared about his struggles, let alone went out of their way to help. "Thank you," he said, feeling both grateful and overwhelmed. Emily smiled. "You deserve it. And you deserve more, actually." Jason raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" She hesitated for a moment, as if choosing her words carefully. "You stood up for me tonight, even though you didn't have to. That says a lot about you. I'd really like to stay in touch." Jason wasn't sure what to think. Emily was clearly from a completely different world than his. She was wealthy, well-dressed, and confident. He was just a courier, struggling to get by. But something about the way she spoke made him feel like he wasn't invisible for once. "All right," he said slowly. "I guess we can stay in touch." Emily grinned. "Good. I'll text you tomorrow about your bike. And maybe we can meet up sometime." Jason nodded, still a little unsure but curious. "Yeah, maybe." As he walked his broken bike away, he couldn't help but wonder, was this just a kind gesture from a stranger, or was this moment going to change his life forever? The next morning, Jason woke up still thinking about what had happened the night before. It all felt unreal. Saving a woman from danger, meeting someone like Emily, and then having her offer to buy him a new bike. He had spent most of his life feeling invisible, struggling just to get by. But now, for the first time, it felt like something different was happening. As he got ready for the day, his phone buzzed. It was a message from Emily. "Good morning. Your new bike will be delivered today. Let me know when you get it. Also, are you free tonight? I'd like to invite you to an event." Jason stared at the message. An event? What kind of event? He had never been invited to anything fancy before. He hesitated before replying. "Thank you for the bike." "And what kind of event?" A few seconds later, Emily responded. "It's a social gathering at my father's company. A lot of important people will be there. I'd love for you to come." Jason felt a mix of emotions. He was just a courier. What would he do at a high-class event? But at the same time, something in him was curious. Maybe this was a chance to see a different side of life, one that he had never experienced before. "Okay, I'll come," he finally replied. Later that day, the delivery truck arrived with his new bike. It was brand new, sleek, and far better than the old, worn-out one he had been using for years. Jason couldn't believe it. He ran his hand over the smooth handlebars, amazed at the gift. For the first time in a long time, he felt like things might be changing for the better. That evening, Jason found himself standing outside a tall, glass-covered building in the wealthy part of the city. He had put on his best clothes, though he still felt out of place. When he walked inside, he was immediately greeted by bright chandeliers, soft music, and well-dressed guests chatting in groups. Everything looked expensive, too expensive for someone like him. Then he saw Emily. She was wearing a beautiful dress, looking elegant and confident. She smiled when she spotted him and walked over. "You made it." Jason nodded, still feeling a little awkward. "Yeah, this is really different from what I'm used to." Emily laughed. "I figured. But don't worry, you'll be fine." She led him through the room, introducing him to different people. Most of them were businessmen, investors, and high-profile professionals. Jason wasn't sure how to talk to them, but he listened carefully. Then, Emily introduced him to an older man named Mr. Reynolds. "I heard you're a courier," Mr. Reynolds said, shaking Jason's hand. "That's hard work. Takes a lot of determination." Jason nodded. "Yes, sir. I've been doing it for a while." Mr. Reynolds smiled. "Well, I might have an opportunity for you. Would you be interested in something bigger?" Jason's heart raced. Was this really happening? Jason could hardly believe what he was hearing. An opportunity. From a wealthy businessman like Mr. Reynolds, it almost felt like a dream. Trying to stay calm, he asked, "What kind of opportunity, sir?" Mr. Reynolds smiled. "I run a logistics company. We handle transportation and delivery services across the city. We're always looking for hardworking people who understand how this business works. Emily told me you've been working as a courier for a while. How would you like to work in a better position? Something with more responsibility and better pay?" Jason felt his heart pound. This was exactly the kind of break he had been hoping for, but he had never imagined it would come like this. "I'd love to, sir. I've worked as a courier for years, so I know how things work on the ground." Mr. Reynolds nodded. "Good. Come by my office on Monday morning. Let's talk about where you can start." Jason could hardly contain his excitement. "Thank you, sir. I really appreciate this opportunity." Emily beamed with pride as she watched the exchange. When Mr. Reynolds walked away to talk to another guest, she turned to Jason. "See, I told you that you deserved more." Jason looked at her, still in disbelief. "I don't know what to say. If you hadn't invited me here, I never would have gotten this chance." Emily smiled. "You earned it, Jason. I just helped a little." That night, Jason went home feeling something he hadn't felt in a long time: hope. For years, he had been stuck in the same cycle, working hard but never getting ahead. Now, for the first time, a door had opened for him. On Monday morning, Jason arrived at the office of Mr. Reynolds' company. He had never been inside such a professional workplace before. The clean floors, the neatly dressed employees, the constant movement of packages, it was all new to him. Mr. Reynolds welcomed him with a firm handshake. "I'm offering you a supervisor position," he explained. "You'll oversee deliveries, manage couriers, and make sure everything runs smoothly. You'll be earning more than you did as a regular courier, and if you do well, there's room for growth." Jason could hardly believe it. He wasn't just getting a better job. He was stepping into a whole new world. "I won't let you down, sir," he said confidently. As the days passed, Jason threw himself into his new job. He worked harder than ever, proving himself to be reliable and smart. His supervisors noticed his dedication, and within months, he was promoted again. One evening, he received a text from Emily. "Proud of you, Jason. Let's celebrate soon." Jason smiled. Just a few months ago, he had been struggling to survive. Now he had a steady income, a future, and a friend who truly believed in him. Little did he know, this was just the beginning of an even bigger journey. Jason's life had changed faster than he ever thought possible. Just months ago, he had been a struggling courier, riding a broken bicycle through the busy streets, hoping for a better future. Now he was working in a respected position at Mr. Reynolds' logistics company, earning a stable income and learning new skills every day. He quickly proved himself to be more than just a hardworking employee. Jason had experience on the ground, which helped him understand the problems couriers faced. He came up with ideas to improve delivery times and reduce mistakes. His managers noticed his efforts, and Mr. Reynolds himself praised him for his dedication. But despite his success, Jason never forgot where he came from. He still visited his old neighborhood, helping his younger sister Mia with her schoolwork and giving advice to other young couriers who were struggling like he once had. One evening, he met Emily at a quiet cafe. She smiled brightly when she saw him. "Look at you. You're doing amazing, Jason." Jason chuckled. "It still feels unreal sometimes. I keep thinking I'll wake up and be back on my old bike, rushing to make deliveries." Emily shook her head. "No way. You earned this. You've worked hard. And now you're moving forward." Jason took a sip of his coffee and looked at her. "I still don't know why you helped me that night. You didn't have to." Emily's expression softened. "I helped you because you helped me first. You didn't think twice before stepping in when I was in trouble. That's rare, Jason. Not many people would have done what you did." Jason thought about that night. He had acted on instinct, without expecting anything in return, and yet it had changed everything for him. Emily hesitated for a moment before speaking again. "There's actually something I wanted to ask you. My father is expanding his business, and he's looking for someone with real experience to manage a new branch. I recommended you." Jason's eyes widened. "Me? A manager?" Emily nodded. "Yes, you understand deliveries, you're responsible, and you have leadership skills. My father trusts you. This could be a huge step for you." Jason felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. He had come so far, but this was something even bigger. Could he really handle it? I don't know, Emily. That's a lot of responsibility." She smiled. "You've already proved yourself, Jason. If you believe in yourself the way I do, you'll do great." Jason took a deep breath. A few months ago, he never would have imagined such an opportunity. But now, it was right in front of him. After a moment, he looked at Emily and nodded. "All right. I'm ready to take the next step." Emily's face lit up. "I knew you would be." Jason didn't realize it then, but this decision would take his life to even greater heights. Jason started his new journey as a manager with a mix of excitement and nervousness. Leading a whole team was very different from his previous job. Before, he only had to worry about his own deliveries. Now he was responsible for making sure an entire branch of the company ran smoothly. On his first day, he walked into the office, dressed neatly and feeling more confident than ever. The employees looked at him with curiosity. Some were experienced workers, while others were young couriers like he used to be. Jason knew he had to prove himself, not just as a worker, but as a leader. Instead of sitting in his office all day, Jason spent time with his team, learning about their daily challenges. He listened to their concerns, just like he had once wished someone would listen to him. He saw the pressure couriers face to meet deadlines, the struggle of dealing with faulty equipment, and the frustration of unclear management instructions. Determined to make a difference, Jason started making changes. He improved the scheduling system so that couriers had enough time to complete deliveries without rushing dangerously. He arranged for better training programs so that new workers could learn quickly and work efficiently. He also introduced a feedback system where employees could share their ideas and concerns directly with him. At first, some people doubted him. "He's just a former courier," some whispered. "What does he know about management?" But as the weeks passed, Jason proved them wrong. The delivery success rate improved, employee satisfaction increased, and even Mr. Reynolds noticed the positive changes. One afternoon, Emily visited the branch to check on his progress. She watched as Jason guided his team, offering support and solving problems with ease. When he finally took a break, she smiled at him. "You're doing great," she said. Jason sighed but grinned. "It's been tough, but I love it. I finally feel like I'm making a real difference." Emily nodded. "I knew you would. You've always had the potential. You just needed the right opportunity." Jason thought about that. If he hadn't helped Emily that night, if he had ignored the situation and walked away, none of this would have happened. It made him realize how one moment, one decision, could change a person's life forever. Later that evening, Jason stood outside the office, looking at the city lights. He wasn't just a courier anymore. He was a leader, someone people looked up to. And for the first time in his life, he felt like he was truly in control of his future. But deep down, he also knew this was just the beginning. Bigger opportunities, bigger challenges, and bigger dreams were waiting for him. And with people like Emily supporting him, he was ready to face whatever came next. Months passed, and Jason continued to grow in his role as a manager. The company was thriving, and he had earned the respect of his colleagues and employees. What once felt like a distant dream was now his reality. He had built a reputation as someone who cared for his team, worked hard, and found creative solutions to problems. But as Jason sat back and reflected on everything he had accomplished, he realized that his journey was far from over. It wasn't just his work life that had changed. Jason's relationship with Emily had grown as well. They saw each other regularly, sometimes for business meetings, sometimes just to catch up and talk. Emily was always there to support him, offering advice when he needed it, and celebrating his successes. She had become a close friend, someone he could count on no matter what. One evening, Emily invited him to dinner at a nice restaurant to celebrate a milestone. Jason's promotion to branch manager had been recognized company-wide. "You've come so far, Jason," Emily said, clinking her glass with his. "I'm proud of you." Jason smiled. "I couldn't have done it without your help. You saw something in me when no one else did. I'll never forget that." Emily's eyes softened. "I just gave you a chance. You did the rest." As they enjoyed their meal, Jason found himself reflecting on his journey. From the scared, struggling courier who had barely made ends meet, to now when he was not only in a leadership position, but also truly respected in his field. He never could have imagined that one act of kindness, a simple decision to help someone in need, would lead to all of this. But that was the power of change, Jason realized. It wasn't about waiting for the perfect moment or having everything figured out. It was about taking chances, even when you didn't feel ready, and trusting that things would fall into place. After dinner, they took a walk in the park nearby. The city was quiet now, and the cool breeze felt refreshing. Jason couldn't help but feel a sense of peace. "I've learned so much over these past few months," he said softly. "About business, about life, about myself." Emily looked at him with a smile. "You've grown a lot, Jason. I can see it. But I also know that you have so much more to give. You're just getting started." Jason stopped walking and turned to her, his heart racing slightly. "What do you mean?" Emily paused for a moment, her gaze thoughtful. "You have the potential to do even more, bigger things. You've got the leadership skills, the heart, and the drive. It's up to you to decide where you want to go next." Jason felt a mix of excitement and uncertainty. He hadn't thought that far ahead, but hearing Emily's words sparked something inside him. He had already come so far, and if he could keep going, who knew what other opportunities awaited him? As they stood there, the sounds of the city fading into the background, Jason made a quiet promise to himself. No matter what happened, he would keep pushing forward. He wouldn't let fear or doubt hold him back. He had already changed his life once, and he was ready to do it again. With Emily by his side and a future full of possibilities ahead of him, Jason knew he was just getting started.